Hi guys, my name is Richard Terborg, and today we're going episode number 2 from the Manic Monday questions. Here's where I gather some questions of my followers and my fans, and I'll try to answer them in a video every Monday afternoon, I guess. So, let's get right to the question. Question number 1. Why don't you use a light meter during your shoots? Do you have your chip in your brain? This is the ye old light meter question. I personally don't use a light meter, at least in my day-to-day activity as working as a photographer. I don't use a light meter. I would encourage anybody who's learning light or wants to know the exact values he's working on to definitely use a light meter. I know a lot of people use them and teach about them. I never really gotten into that. I'm more of a hands-on type of user, hands-on experience type of user. So I just put my lights, take a test shot, look at my test shot. I see my test shot is overlit, is it underlit, and from there I'll adjust my lights accordingly. I think after you've experienced using your lights for a few times and you know what it is that you like, what it is that you're looking for, it's a little bit more easier to just set your lights to the value they're almost always on and then continue shooting on that value. So I know with my lights when they're on, I use the Elinchrom ELB range and the Elinchrom ELC range. I know when they're on 2.3 with a softbox on them, I usually shoot at f8. And if I want a little bit more light, I'll go to f5.6. And from there, I go to a little bit f11 if I want a little bit less of light. So I don't use a light meter. I would encourage you to use one if you want to know exactly what your light is on. I find it just a little bit cumbersome to walk to my model, tick-leap, look at the meter, go to my camera, adjust, versus take the shot, get the model moving already, look at my light, adjust the light, take another shot, and usually I'm there within 2 or 3 shots. So that's how I use my light without metering it. But again, I would encourage anybody who loves to meter or like to know exactly what value he's on with shooting, use it. It's an amazing thing, I guess, just not for me. Question number 2. If you had 500 euros to burn on lighting gear, what would you buy? This question I get a lot. A lot of people don't know what lighting gear to buy when they're on a budget or when they're just starting photography or they have X amount of money to spend on lighting. It's a question you can divide into multiple parts. I mean, let's say part 1, I had the same, when moving into flash photography, I had the same question. I have X amount of money, I want to invest it into lights, but do I want that? So step 1 for me was figuring out, do I like flash photography? Because I didn't know, I bought a small speed light. It was a YN, a Yongnuo 1U, something like that. It was a YN, it was around 50 euros. I bought that to test my lighting skills. I bought an off-camera trigger so I could put the light off camera. And that way I can at least figure out if flash photography was something that I liked. After almost a year or 2 years of shooting with the little small portable cheap flashes, I figured, okay, now that I've experienced light, I love the light, I would like a little bit more leeway in power. I would like a little bit more leeway in softboxes and modifiers. That's when I started looking into bigger studio flashes and bigger budget studio kits. Then came the next challenge. I didn't want to spend more money than I had to, if it doesn't mean I'll get a better quality. So when searching online, I started figuring out what's the best quality I could get for the cheapest price. I came to the very, very cheap lights. Those were the 200, 300, 400 bucks sets, the Falcon Eyes and things like that, the more Asian market type flashes. I figured if I'm going to buy a light, and I like light, I already figured out that I like lighting because I had a speed light. I already figured out I love lighting and using flash gear. So I thought, why invest in something that will cost me 300 euros, that will break within 2-3 years, and then I'll have to invest another 300 euros to get a new set, or maybe even more to get a better set. So I figured from the get-go, I won't invest in something that I'll eventually replace with something else. I would rather invest in something that's a little bit more expensive, but it's something that will stay with me with my life. I kind of see it like when you buy lenses. When you buy a lens, you don't buy it to replace it as soon as the next lens version comes out. You buy a lens to pretty much stick with you for the rest of your life. I mean, a lens is something you invest in, and once it's there, you're going to have it for the rest of your life. You don't really need to replace it. It's going to work. It's going to work. It's the same with lighting gear, right? I invested into a brand which was the cheapest and the best. I wouldn't say they was the cheapest, but they're the best quality that passes the price test. And that for me was Elinchrom. Elinchrom had like the best quality of light versus the best price to get the quality of light. And their range of soft boxes was amazing. So if I had 500 euros again, given talking to my younger self, if I would have advised my younger self, like, hey, you have 500 euros, what would you invest in? I would still advise my younger self to invest into Elinchrom. That's what I did 6 years ago. I never regretted it. I still use the lights today. It's the best kit I've ever had. I've tried other kits. It just works perfect for me. So for those 500 euros, I would really tell my younger self to invest in an Elinchrom kit. Get something between 100 watts, 200 watts, maximum of 400 watts. Because when I started out, everybody told me I needed a 500 watt light. I invested into 500 watts, and apparently I have never shot them at 500 watts. I always shoot them at 300, 400, and maybe even less, usually at around 100 watts. So if you're looking at new lights, if you have 500 euros to give, think about the wattage. Keep it at maybe 200, 300, 400, something in the range of that. Maybe one 200 and one 400. And try and find a brand that suits you, that has like, you know, a good quality versus a good price range. And for me, again, that was the Elinchrom range. So we got question number 3. I have a question. How do you stay alive while working so much? How do you avoid a burnout like deal? This is a hard one. Well, not really a hard one. It's an interesting one. How do you keep... The question really is how do you keep working so hard and not burn out, or at least not wear yourself out? I think one of the most important key things about this is having a passion for what you do, loving what you do, which makes it really not feel like work. Have you ever woke up one morning and you know you were going to do something very exciting later on the day? Like, you know, you were going to Disneyland when you were a little kid and you couldn't sleep all night because you knew you were going to Disneyland. It was very exciting. You woke up in the morning, you were even more excited, ready to go, ready to pack. You were packing before your parents. And it's exactly that type of feeling I get when it revolves around work, right? So as soon as I get, every morning when I wake up or every time I get something, I try to get something that I'm really passionate about. So I can get that feeling of, I can't wait to get the hang of this. I can't wait to do this. It's going to be fun. It's going to be amazing. Same as like when a kid went to Disneyland. It's the same type of feeling I try to get. And I think when it's like that, it's a little harder to get burned out because you're not really overstressing. Burnout really exists from overstressing. I mean, you have something to do, you're stressing about it, and the stressing gets into your body, it gets into your shoulders, you get a little bit cramped up, and that's how burnouts kind of start. If you keep going on in the same way, it will burn you out, and then your brain will be a little bit numb. So you need to try and avoid getting the stress that comes with what you do. And it's not about the physical work, it's not about the hard work, it's not about the few hours of sleep, because a lot of new parents that just got a baby only get like 2 or 3 hours sleep a day. They can do this for like a year and have no problems doing their day job and having the kid. It's hard work, it takes some getting used to, but it won't burn you out. What will burn you out is the stress that will accompany the things that you do, something that you don't really want to do and it's stressing you out, and that's where the burnout will come. So trying to find the passion and trying to find the fun things to do, trying to find something interesting, something that keeps you motivated, just like going to Disneyland that first time, or, you know, getting really excited about something. I try to do that as much as possible to kind of, you know, level out the burnout. And I mean, they say work hard, play harder. So again, when having fun, we go to the extremes and really have fun to really let off some steam. I hope that really answers your question. I have had a burnout, by the way, and it really, really sucks. It's not something you want to be in. But again, it's all about the stress and the stress relief. We're at the last question again. Question number 4. Let me see. If you had to choose between fashion or fantasy-themed photography, what would it be? That's more of a personal question. It's not really anything interesting, but interesting about the industry. It depends. I mean, fashion, I started into fashion photography because I loved creating big concepts and I loved creating interesting stories. And fashion was kind of a place to be and be able to tell those stories. That's why I got into fashion photography. Nowadays, it's more fine art, which gives you more of that freedom to really, really express what you want to say without restrictions on clothing, restrictions on magazines, or restrictions of the art director. So fine art isn't fantasy, but if I would take the two, I would use fashion and fine art. And I would really choose fine art versus fashion because fine art just gives me a little bit more freedom into shooting whatever I want. Take it into fantasy teams. Again, with fantasy teams, you can pretty much create your own fantasy. You can do whatever you want in those teams. You can play with those things. It's a very interesting team to play with. Versus fashion, where there's an art director who wants the clothing to be in a certain style, who wants the model to be in a certain style, who wants the picture to be in a certain style. So it's a way more stricted way of working fashion photography versus a teamed, fantasy teamed, or fine art or whatever themed photo shoot. So yeah, if I were to choose, I would choose a themed or a fantasy themed or a fine art shoot or something that's mine to tell a story versus a more stricted fashion shoot, which is bound to magazine rules and magazine things. That's about it. We had another 4 questions. So if you have any new questions, anything else, drop a line. If you would like to see more of this, subscribe to the link. I'll be creating a little bit more shows about different topics. I'll be interviewing some more people. I'll be going around and see if we can do something interesting in this whole photography business. See you guys again next Monday. Bye.